This is the King Chasing Podcast, where we keep Christ at the center of athletics. Here's your host, Brandon Gilmore.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. I'm Brandon, and this is the King Chasing Podcast. As always, thanks for joining us, and please make sure to visit our website at theNCCAA.org for more King Chasing content. Today's guest is Judy Fox, the founder and president of Ignite International. Judy has been inducted into 4 Halls of Fame, including Houghton University's Hall of Honor and the NCCAA's Hall of Fame. Her global impact is notable in the USA, Nicaragua, Cuba, Liberia, the Holy Land, Jamaica, and Russia, to name a few. Judy has trained leaders of national teams, international sports federations, Olympic committees, and youth development and community influencers in more than a dozen nations to utilize the universal language of sport to empower tomorrow's leaders. Thanks for listening today, and I hope you enjoy my conversation with Judy. Well, hey, Judy, welcome to King Chasing. Thank you for joining us today. How are you doing?
Oh, fantastic. It's always awesome to see you guys. Love being a part, and it's just honored to be with you today, Brandon.
Well, we're happy to have you on with us. Now, I know you just recently returned from a mission trip to Jamaica. How was that trip?
Oh man, it was awesome. I mean, people think Jamaica, especially Montego Bay, and they think all the luxury, the indulgence, just all those things. And we spend a little time on the beach, of course. We'd be stupid not to, but we spend our time, as is characteristic, as we'll talk through, but we spend our time in the places that people aren't really likely to go. And it's a heavy space. In that area, they deal with a lot of violence and criminal and gang and addiction and abuses and things unspeakable, all within eyesight. We spent most of our week right across the highway from the airport. And so every afternoon we're watching planes take off. And all I kept thinking was, these tourists just probably had the time of their life and a wonderful, hopefully relaxing, just beautiful time. And they have no idea that right beneath them are kids and young females and youth, young adults and adults who have known nothing but trauma their entire lives. And so we had the Taylor University volleyball team with us. I'll touch on the significance of them and just an honor to start this year with them once again serving with us. And it was just a really powerfully impactful time.
Now, you've given your life to serving Christ through athletics. That passion began after serving on a mission trip to Mexico, just after graduation from college. What do you remember from that trip that helped launch you into a lifetime of sports ministry?
So I've always been drawn, even as a kid. It's funny how God puts in you from an early age kind of the things that he then uses you to accomplish. I think I've seen that pattern over and over in my life. One of the things that has always been a draw to me is those athletes that use their platform as an opportunity to share their faith. I remember Mike Schmidt was always my childhood hero. In fact, my fun fact about Judy Fox, my very first dream in life was to play first base for the Philadelphia Phillies opposite Mike Schmidt. That didn't happen, so here we are. But I remember at his jersey retirement, my dad took me to it the night they retired his jersey in Philly, and he talked about faith, family, and friendships. And it's like I've always been drawn to that. And so that very first opportunity that I had to, like you said, right after college graduation, to go on a mission trip to Mexico, it was kind of that combination of everything. Like I remember being down there just going, this is everything that I love. Intense competition, huge crowds at our games. They actually thought we were the national team, which was hilarious. It was different culture, different foods, different people, different language. And there was just like an energy and a conviction toward not just being there, not just enjoying the moment, but really realizing that people go through hard stuff in this world that we know nothing about. And those needs are very evident when you go into a place that's different. And I remember just being there going, man, someday I could have an organization like this. And, God just really started shaping a dream at that point. I've always said that it was kind of like a passing idea that never came out the other side, and so God just kind of brought this idea, planted a seed of vision inside me, and it never left. And it just burns every day.
Now, after graduating from Houghton College, which is now Houghton University, you went on to coach at various collegiate levels, including NCCAA, NAIA, and even NCAA Division I. What are some ways that you tried to make an impact for Christ as a coach?
I've always said, and even in whether it was club sports, collegiate sports, even at the highest levels, I've always said, and my experience is primarily volleyball. Anybody could relate this to whatever is their particular niche or field of expertise. But I've always said, if it was just about hitting a ball back and forth over a net, teaching kids how to swing an arm or whatever, if it's only about physical skills and tactics, that's fun, but there's not really a lasting value in that. But if we as coaches or people in leadership can figure out how to use that thing that we've been given, and it's a tool to do something so much more, so much greater in the life of the next generation, then we've got a really unique opportunity to make an impact that nothing else can make. And so I've always tried to stay very cognizant, very mindful that, as a coach, I'm going to get that kid maybe 2 hours a day, maybe 5 or 6 days a week, longer on game days, obviously, maybe 4, 5, 6 months out of the year, depending what kind of season it is, and for a maximum of 4 years of their life. And yet, research has shown over the years that the number one personal influence, I think social media, unfortunately, probably competes with this now, but the personal influence in the life of a young person is their coach. And coaches have a voice of influence that they can say the exact same things that mom and dad say, but that kid just embraces it. And so that's just been a mindset that I've always, tried to approach my coaching with. And now just having the opportunity to work with so many teams and so many programs, they all become mine. And so I try to approach it the same. It's the physical experience is just a tool to lead to a much greater, hopefully eternal impact on those lives.
In 2003, you founded Ignite International, whose goal is to ignite generational cycles of hope, one life at a time, through the universal language of sport. Can you share more about Ignite International?
Sure. I like I said, after your first question, that idea was planted in me. Maybe I could have an organization like the one I had traveled with, similar but different. Everyone has their uniqueness. And it was 2002. I was here in Dallas. My assistant and I at the time had been talking about starting a volleyball club. And I just didn't really know what the name of it was, but this vision had been just stirring in me. I knew that one day I'd be, using that universal language of sport as a tool for greater impact than just in one particular institution setting. And she called me one day, and and I was actually sound asleep. It was July 4th afternoon. And I was sound asleep taking one of those afternoon naps. They're like the best ones where you're just out. I mean, you might as well be a bear in the middle of winter at that point, right? You're just down for the count. So she calls me out of deep, deep sleep and says, "Hey, I got a great idea. What about the name Ignite for our volleyball club?" And me in my waking up stupor says, "Yeah, we can talk about that." And she thought I hated it. And what she didn't know till I told her afterward was when I heard that word, it's like everything came together in that word because it means to start a fire or to start something. And all of a sudden, I mean, I got up, I started pacing around the living room, and all of a sudden they came together. Ignite International, athletes set on fire to impact the world. And we had and I could see just everything I had envisioned, even our core verse that the Lord had given me years before is Jeremiah 20, verse 9. If I say I won't speak of him, or if I say I won't mention him or speak anymore in his name, his word is in me like a fire. And I, even if I try to hold it in, I can't. It's just who I am. And it's like all this vision just came together in this word. And so Ignite International, we have since then focused very heavily on providing opportunities for teams, collegiate teams, club teams, et cetera, to do mission trips. I would not call us necessarily a sending agency from the perspective that I go and invest a lot of time creating, establishing, and growing relationships, and then invite people to come with us and lead them through that experience that is so unique. So there's a depth of relationship already established before they ever step in a country. Every team we take somewhere has been welcomed like family where they've come with us to serve, because those relationships are invested in the day and night hours that nobody else can see. And so in the past, we have focused very heavily on a mission trip type model. As we have grown over the years, and the Lord just transitions things, and a political landscape and a global landscape, and those things begin to evolve. I don't know if that's the right word to use, but there's shifts. That's opened up other opportunities for workshops and curriculum and just a more internal focus in the places and spaces that we've had an opportunity to reach. So the future's going to be pretty interesting that way too, in addition to what we've already done.
Yeah. Now, Ignite International has had enormous global impact, and you just kind of touched, I believe, on this a little bit, but you've since launched Ignite U1, which is here domestically in the States. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, it's the most, it's just probably the most unique and powerful experience I've ever been called upon or had a part in. I had, as I was mentioning, there's shifts and just you see the world kind of changing around you, and you can't spend time in the spaces that we do. I've never wanted the easy ministry. I've never wanted to just go into the places that I can come home with a lot of statistics and things like that. And in fact, I've often said, I want to go to the places no one else is willing to go. I want to go to the places that, we might not really know till heaven. We all say it and it sounds good, but how many of us are really willing to go pour into someone's life when we might not see the fruit till we're actually in eternity? I'm okay with that. I don't need to come back with numbers and all that. I need to know that some really do plant, some really do water, and it's He who gives the increase. And it's not my business how He chooses to do that. We are here to ignite. And so having said that, I had this kind of growing burning that there was something different. There was something more. There was something unique that we're supposed to do starting here, but not just domestically. But there's something that we're supposed to do that's not been tapped into, or there was just some, I don't know, that, that nebulous, I know there's something, I just don't know what the it is.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been just praying in that regard since probably, I don't know, at least 10, maybe the last 7-8 years prior to this experience. So in 2018, I think it was April 6th, it was early April of 2018, that first weekend. I'm a junkie for solving crimes and mystery. And, I grew up reading the Hardy Boys and Nancy Drew and Agatha Christie and all that stuff. I mean, if reincarnation was a thing, which I know it's not, but if it was, I'd come back as CIA in a heartbeat and just solve everything. I'd either be that or my next door neighbor's dog. anybody who's heard me share, because he's got a pretty good life. So kudos
Right.
to Next Door. But I've always had a leaning toward just solving those things that are hard to solve. And so Dateline NBC is always been one of my go-tos. I've always realized these are real people that experience real challenges, very painful stuff. And there's always that twist. Dateline is kind of the granddaddy of them all, and just masterful in how they present, and I think very tactfully present real life challenges that people experience and injustices. So I sat down to watch Dateline that night, and the storyline just briefly was, it captured me. It was obviously a family had experienced extraordinary loss, and so I have tremendous compassion for their loss. But I was especially drawn to the one gal who was really the feature of this episode, who had been wrongfully charged with the murder that took place. Her husband at the time had murdered his first wife and framed her for it. And she ended up spending almost a year and a half incarcerated, never went to trial, but incarcerated on a charge she had nothing to do with. And long story short is that the district attorney, all of them, all the law enforcement, they were determined to put her away. And as they sought out evidence to prove the decision they had already come to, and certainly the court of public opinion had already reached a conclusion about her that turned out to be wrong. But as they sought out evidence to put her away, that evidence actually proved that she had been telling the truth all along and was never there and had nothing to do with it. Wow. And to his credit, he released her. He has become a strong advocate for her. She has since, had opportunities to team lecture with him at colleges and things like that. And for those who are in the field of criminal justice or legal studies, I don't want to misspeak on that, but what an amazing turnaround when a district attorney who held your life in his hands, had charged her with capital murder, is now one of her greatest advocates. And very vocal about her integrity and her just who she is as a person. And so that was the first hour of the story, was just kind of the case. Then the second hour, we actually got to meet her, and she shared her journey through life. And it was just one traumatic experience after the next. I mean, how an individual is still standing after that is, there's a strength there and a beautiful grace, just very bold courage and a gracious strength that I think those of us who've not experienced those things know nothing of. She concluded the program with her final statement saying that she wanted to go to law school and fight for those who find themselves in a similar position. And Brandon, I sat there and watched that episode, and literally I was sitting there going, my goodness, I've sat in the presence of ambassadors and vice presidents and Olympians and national team athletes in multiple countries, but I've never heard a voice inspiring me like this one. And I don't know what it was. I've seen a million episodes of Dateline NBC, but I couldn't let that go. And I just started praying for this young lady. I didn't know her. She's from Amarillo, Texas, 5 hours from me. Never heard of the case. I never heard her name, never knew anything about him. But it was about a week later, I just felt like the Lord told me, find her and send her a message. And I was like, well, that's about the creepiest thing ever. And but I did. And never expected to receive a reply from her. But she wrote me back about 2.5 hours later. And I can tell you, since that time, she's become a little sister. She's among the most precious human beings in my life. And it was in 2019 that she called me and she said, I got to start sharing this. People are going to want to get me on a stage, but I don't want to share with the suits. I want to share with the ones. I want the ones who are going through the things I've been through, to be where I share my story. And she said, all I knew is I needed to call you because I don't know how to do this, but you do. And I said, what if we could do it together? Because I'd had that thing burning in me that there's something unique that we're supposed to do that reaches into places that others just won't go. And that's how Ignite U1 was born. It stands for Ignite You First. And our core conviction is that you can't undo the past. You can't change the things that have happened to you. You can't change the behaviors or responses that, the actions that you have taken as a result of things that have happened to you, but you can be the one that changes things for your family and their kids and their kids and their kids. It starts when you ignite you first. And so we've been building a team of extreme overcomers who have been through enormous adversities, but now are finding that their victory also comes when that thing that could have destroyed them becomes a weapon that they can use to destroy trauma in others. So to break those intergenerational cycles of trauma and ignite generational cycles of hope across the U.S., because we know our kids need it. But even, I'll just say this, even in Jamaica, I was sharing with some of the leaders about that, and they were like, can we start a team down here for Ignite U1 specifically? And I was like, so we actually just talked about it last night, about doing that. So that's a message that needs to go across the world. But Ignite U1 it's an initiative of Ignite International. And both can find healing. When you can connect overcomers with those who are in the process striving to overcome, both of them find victory. And, we've just, the sentence that the Lord gave me was, when you get to see someone else find hope because you're willing to share the things that you've been through, even if you're still in it, because we always think everyone needs to be through it before they can do something with it, even while you're still in it. You will find in that moment that though you may have walked through the darkest of hell, in the end, you won.
Wow. That's such a cool story and inspiring story of how U1 was launched. It's a part of Ignite International, as you said, which is in its 20th year.
That's right.
What are you most proud of these past 20 years? And then what's your vision for the next 20?
Oh gosh, what am I most proud of? I think if I had to put my finger on the things that I would be most proud of, it's the names of young people, collegiate athletes who have come through a mission trip with us, a 7-day experience, a 12-day experience, and are now in positions where they are out serving. And they come back and they say, this started because I did that trip with you. Coaches who are now coaching. And whether it's that they did a trip with us or whether it's that they heard me speak, at a banquet at NCCAA and at nationals or something like that. I mean, just the fact that God can use, take a kid out of the Pocono Mountains of northeastern Pennsylvania, just create a being that is just willing to say yes to him. That's the only thing I've done, is to wake up every morning and say yes. Whatever you want to do today, God, the answer is yes. But the fact that now there are, kids who've served in all different capacities with all kinds of different organizations. It's not, what I'm proud of is not that they necessarily come back and serve with us. They're serving with someone. And they're making a difference. They're taking college coaching jobs. When those people have been ignited with hope, and now they are igniting hope for others. And that accomplishes the mission, to ignite generational cycles of hope. We talk about generational curses all the time, but what about generational hope? Because if people live hopeless, they're going to live life by trial and error. And they don't know how to do something different. If they have hope, however, gosh, God just created the human spirit to have the capacity to accomplish amazing things if we have the hope to persevere, if we keep our feet grounded on the good days and persevere on the tough days. And so I think just seeing the number of names, every time I see a name of someone that's come through an experience with us, And now they're out doing amazing stuff, living their dreams and fulfilling or helping others, empowering others, developing others to fulfill theirs. I don't know that those are my proudest moments, but I sure am deeply humbled by them. And I think those two should be one and the same.
Now, this past fall, you signed on to be the interim women's volleyball coach at Houghton for the season. Curious, after being away from coaching for so long, what was that experience like for you?
Different and exciting, and Division III coaches have a lot on their plate. I learned that pretty quick. Lot of respect for the many tools and applications that are required, and just the diligence that's required of coaches today, that, where communication was just so simple for us back then. I loved it. And it's so funny because so many people sent me messages saying, oh, by October, you're going to have the itch to get back into coaching and blah, blah, blah. And for me, the volleyball itself, the game itself, that was very little part of why I did it. It was an opportunity to, one, give back to my alma mater that has played such a part in my life. My parents met at Houghton. So, people say this all the time, but I literally wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Houghton.
Right.
I love that place. I've given years of my life, both as a student and on staff, to that place. They've shaped so much of who I am, and it's a really special community. And so the advantage of what I do is I don't have a particular affiliation to any institution. Like I said, they're all mine. But Houghton is a place that is uniquely special and will always be a place that I would say yes to serve in that capacity. I think the opportunity, especially to have been asked to invest in the life of a young lady who was my setter, was a fifth-year grad student, and but to spend particular time with her, kind of mentoring her to prepare her for what hopefully would become her head coaching role, was a really unique space that we don't often get opportunities to do. And what I thought at the beginning would be hopefully an opportunity for her to be hired maybe next spring. She was hired before Christmas, and
Wow.
I could not be more excited to see Haley Unverdorben as the next head coach, and to have had an opportunity to have just a hand in that, and in part of her journey. And that was absolutely extraordinary. So it was really special, and it was a spectacular autumn in Western New York. And living here in Dallas, Texas, the one season I really miss up north is the autumn. So
Yeah. How different is coaching today from what it was 20 years ago?
The game is much faster, but I always felt like as a part of I feel like there are principles and absolutes. The laws of physics haven't changed. The angles of geometry haven't changed. So from a foundational from a foundational perspective, there are basics and things in terms of volleyball, the game itself, that are very different. And I've not been disconnected from the game, but to literally coach a team and plan the practices day in and day out, that there were differences there. But just from a coaching experience in general, I think what our young people go through on a day-to-day basis now, the advent and the rise of social media, and just having so much information and so much input into their lives, not all of it healthy, at such an enormous and fast rate, is there's advantages to social media, but it puts them in a space that's just really tough sometimes. And there's just so much noise that they've got to weed through. But they're so open. I think this is a generation that my generation often, we only hear the negative stuff on the news, or we hear, snowflakes and all this stuff. This next generation has so much creativity, has so much potential, and the ability to draw people together and to rally around something in such a huge way. I mean, this team, I watched they made a TikTok video that had like 1.5 million views within a couple of days. You
Wow.
know, I started hearing from people, all friends of mine all over the country were sending me texts like, "Hey, we just saw an Instagram clip and you're in the background. Like, what's going on?" And I'm like, hundreds of thousands of people that they can get information to in such a quick time. And so the downside of them being so overstimulated with the noise is there's an upside to that they have an ability to mobilize people toward action. And I think, coaching back then there were advantages 20 years ago to so much maybe, just letter writing or email was still a little bit new then, which is weird. But now it's like you can just mobilize people around an idea. And so if we can direct that and help grow that in a positive direction, oh my goodness, this generation has such an opportunity to impact in ways that 20 years ago would have been unheard of for us or to those growing up then.
You mentioned NCCAA championships a few minutes ago. You served as chaplain at our women's volleyball championships since 2009. What do you enjoy most about that role?
I think similar to a couple things. I think similar to what I said about giving back to Houghton and the part that Houghton has played in my life. The NCCAA has been such a rich part of my personal journey, and Dan and Kelly have been longtime friends of mine. I spent a couple years at Indiana Wesleyan as the head coach, and Dan was the men's soccer coach. And that's when I got to know Dan and Kelly. Dan's office was a couple doors down from mine. Dear friends of many years, and people who, we all have those people in life that if they call you, say the answer is yes. As long as you're able to, the answer is yes. And I was incredibly honored when Kelly reached out to me and asked me if I would consider serving in that role. And the NCCAA really is instrumental in opening opportunities for me. I never played volleyball before I went to college. And I don't know, people know that if they know me, but Northeastern Pennsylvania wasn't really a thing in the schools at that time. And so I walked onto the team and, 4 years later was named an NCCAA Division I All-American. And so the NCCAA is quite literally the beginning of the bullet points on a resume that God has used just to open doors. And so I'm very, try to stay grateful for that. I am grateful for that. Don't try. There's no try there. I am grateful for that. But serving, giving back to the NCCAA in a simple role that allows me to use the experiences and just download them to next generation, to encourage coaches, to encourage fans. It's interesting. After all of these tournaments every year at D2 and D1, I often will have a coach come ask me to pray with them over something that they personally are going through. And when you're coaching, you just can't blab that to everybody. Your team is always coming to you. You're carrying the burdens for your team, and you don't always have your go-to in those moments. And so I always appreciate that coaches know they have someone to go to. I often will have a parent come ask me to pray with them or to pray for their family. Even at the D2 volleyball tournament this year, a mom came over to me after her team was lost and eliminated. After somewhat of an upset, a mom came over to me and handed me a message and just said, "If you think of it, would you reach out to my daughter?" And it was just a beautiful note that she gave me with her daughter's email address and those things. And it's like the fact that anybody in all levels of that feel that they have somebody they can go to just for encouragement, or, whether it's a devotional for a team or whether it's giving them a high five or walking down the hall with them and just reminding them that that they're there for a purpose, and that God's going to use that experience. I love it. Those are 2 weekends that are high priority to me. I won't schedule something else. I mean, God kind of scheduled a snowstorm in Buffalo when I was flying back from Kissimmee this year. That was fun. But I don't schedule other things during those 2 weekends in the fall, and that's sacred time for me to set aside and give back to those who are currently having the opportunities to experience with the NCCAA what I had the chance to experience eons ago. We won't talk about how many years, but it's a lot.
As we start to kind of wrap up this conversation, if any of our listeners want to learn more or connect with Ignite International, how can they do that?
They can, if they go to igniteinternational.org, www.igniteinternational.org, or if they go to igniteu1, letter U, number 1.com, they could connect with me through that. They can always get my email address from you guys, but if they would connect through there, they can probably just submit the thing. It all comes to me, and I see it all anyway, and be able to decipher how best to serve them or how best to respond to them. As we look ahead, we're looking at workshops, curriculum, coaching retreats, just a whole bunch of things coming in the next 20 years that are in addition to things we've done in the last. And so there is some uniqueness to the future here that we're excited about, and they could jump on our newsletter list. But through either website, they could get to me and find more about Ignite International. They could also connect with us on Facebook on either of those. We're working on Instagram, but we need the next gens to help us with that.
I got one more question for you.
Go for it.
I know you are a big time Eagles fan. So I I have to ask, how far do you think they can go this year?
You know what? I'll give the staple answer that I think any of them would answer is the only game we care about is this weekend. Go one for one this week.
There you go.
Difference in the Eagles fan base, which there's a lot of differences in the Eagles fan base. It's a blue collar base. But the difference in the Eagles fan base is we don't take a whole lot for granted here. And there's something really special about this team and the city, and love the testimony of Jalen Hurts and the leadership he's brought, and excited. We'll see where it goes. It goes, but excited for this past weekend, excited what happened last night too. And there's a beautiful after hush down here in Big D, but we'll see what happens Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have, but thank you, Judy, for joining us on King Chasing today.
Appreciate what you guys do. Everybody keep chasing the king. There's nothing in life more valuable than that. And thanks, Brandon. Thanks, Dan and Kelly, and your entire team for all that you guys do. You guys reach so many people, and I'm just very honored to play the part that I can to assist in that vision.
Thanks again to Judy for sharing how she began a lifetime of sports ministry, how she tried to make an impact for Christ as a coach, and the global impact of Ignite International and Ignite U1. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to the King Chasing podcast on whatever app you use to listen. We would also appreciate it if you encouraged others to listen and subscribe. Once again, we're thankful to you for tuning in and supporting us. Join us next time on King Chasing. Take care, everyone.